welcome to Stingray, Tom's Florida, and another Take 5 for Florida history. A couple of months ago, I was chatting with an acquaintance when the topic of planetariums came up. I mentioned that I used to go to planetarium shows while in college, including going to occasional rock music, laser light shows, held on weekend nights. This video is the direct result of that brief conversation, though it'll be more of an introduction to the topic rather than a full exploration. The conversation got me thinking that it'd been the 1990s when I last went to a laser light show, and I realized I'd love to go again. The thing was that I couldn't recall seeing any information about them. If you've watched a number of my videos, you'll know that I'm a boots-on-the-ground type of historian. Regardless of research I've done in the archive and on the computer, it's just as important for me to visit the site I'll be talking about. That means that I don't do the same thing over and over, and I lose touch with some things. So when I thought again about planetarium shows, I wasn't terribly surprised that I hadn't seen one in many years. But I was surprised that there hadn't been a brochure or advert that reminded me. By the way, if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. So that's when I made a visit to the website of the Orlando Science Center. I've always been someone who has explored the state, so in the past I've been lucky enough to see shows in Miami, Sarasota, and Orlando. All three science museums have been favorites of mine since the 1980s, and each continue to be successful, I'm happy to say. Today, they're not really tourist attractions as they once were, but there's many more locals, so their attendance is doing just fine. But back to the Orlando Science Center. I was very surprised to learn that the OSC, as the locals call it, was in the midst of a complete renovation of their CineDome, as it's officially called. The CineDome is part planetarium and part remarkable theater. Imagine a very curved IMAX. The summer of 2026 is the target completion date. I contacted the museum and they were generous enough to let me visit to take a look at the construction and learn about the details. The information included on the OSC website describes the renovation probably better than I can, though I edited a bit. Dr. Phillips Charities donated $1 million to Orlando Science Center's Unlock Science campaign to fund a complete renovation of their Dr. Phillips CineDome. These funds will be combined with other campaign dollars to bring cutting-edge planetarium shows to Orlando Science Center, along with giant screen movies and original laser light shows. The Dr. Phillips CineDome renovations will include the installation of an 8K ultra-high-definition full-dome digital laser projection system, replacing the original film-based technology. It'll have digital projectors which use laser light sources rather than lamps used in film projectors. A new immersive, powerful audio system will heighten the sense of reality and impact of the shows. This project also includes the replacement of the theater's dome screen and installation of all new seating. Now, covering the renovation is sort of the main reason for this video. I want you to know about the changes and what they mean. But I also want to look back at a bit of history. I tend to watch a lot of YouTube, but I don't watch many videos about Florida. That may sound strange, but I don't want my future videos to be affected by what I see. Still, when researching something, I like to make a quick search to see how often the subject has been covered on YouTube. When I began looking for the history of planetariums and laser light shows, there really weren't many videos available. While I'm not an expert on the subject, I thought that covering the topic would be helpful. That is, if my channel ever gets popular enough for videos to get promoted. While I'll be learning more about the OSC when the CineDome is completed, I want to start with some background info and go on from there. Sorry if this is basic information, but I think it might be helpful. To start with, the Orlando Science Center is a science museum. A lot of similar institutions have dropped the word museum from the title because for some it implies a place that's less dynamic than they'd hope it to be. And that's probably why art museums are still fine with the title. Now, science museums can encompass a great deal of topics, which can be boiled down into two aspects: natural science and human technology. Some science museums like to focus on only one of those, while others are happy to cover both. Natural science has to do with all the basic sciences: biology, chemistry, geology, and physics. The other aspect is pretty much the things humans have invented or modified in one way or another. So, think architecture, mechanical objects such as planes, trains, and automobiles, medical advances, and of course the big one for Central Florida, space exploration. The OSC covers both aspects quite well and in interesting ways. I'm showing parts of the museum while talking. I particularly like the dinosaur area and the aquarium and indoor forest, but as you know, I love animals. The other thing to mention is the difference between a planetarium and an observatory. With a dad who was an amateur astronomer, I've known the difference since I was a kid, but the two terms can be confusing to some. Simply put, an observatory is a place where people look through a telescope to actually see the night sky. Some science museums have them and offer night sky watching events. On the other hand, planetariums let people see the night sky through a projection system, but visitors are only seeing a representation of the night sky shown on a curved surface. The best of them look like the night sky, and viewers usually sit in reclined chairs and watch either a video or deceptively simple points of light. It's not unusual for museums to have both a planetarium and observatory, just like combining natural and human sciences. Obviously, there's a large overlap in it all. Opened in 1960, OSC is one of the older science museums in the state. Its current location in Lock Haven Park, just north of downtown Orlando, is a relatively new facility, at least to me, considering I've been visiting long before the museum moved in 1997. Today, the original museum site is the home of the Orlando Shakespeare Center as well as the Orlando Fringe Festival, the oldest operating fringe festival in the U.S. It's that building where I first watched planetarium shows in the 1980s. Coincidentally, I attended the first Orlando Fringe shows only a decade later when they were in downtown Orlando. When the OSC was in its old facility, it was named after one of the 12 men who walked on the moon, astronaut John Young. I plan to do a video on him one of these days, as he spent much of his life in Orlando and flew on 2 Gemini missions, was the command module pilot for Apollo 10, commanded Apollo 16, and was the commander of the 1st and 9th Space Shuttle missions. The John Young Museum and Planetarium had an observatory and a planetarium, powered by a special optical star projector unit from Minolta called the MS-10. It was one of the most popular astronomical projectors being used in planetariums throughout the world. As you can see by this graphic, it was a complicated structure that could accurately reproduce the night sky for both the northern and southern hemispheres, showing the relative locations of the planets on any given day and at any time of the night. Today, such remarkable and complicated optical projectors have been replaced by digital video technology, but there's really something to be said about sitting in a dark planetarium and seeing the MS-10 moving around in the center. While it could only operate in a dome 12 meters or 40 feet in diameter, thereby keeping the audience down to about 120 people, it was a remarkable experience. The planetarium's small size meant that its laser light shows were rather intimate as well, and they were popular with college-aged locals as well as tourists looking for an interesting night out at a time when Walt Disney World provided very little for vacationers to do after dark, even on weekends. The shows were also popular with U.S. Navy recruits who went through boot camp at the nearby Naval Training Center. Now, I don't have any video from the early laser light shows shown at John Young, but here are some similar clips. Sadly, I've had to replace the original music by The Doors and Pink Floyd due to YouTube restrictions. Let me know in the comments if you attended any of the early laser light shows in Orlando or anywhere else. By the way, I'll be putting up a second video of just the video from the laser light shows. Along with the MS-10, the planetarium was equipped with sound system, lasers, and projectors that created the fascinating light shows. Yes, the shows weren't very complicated, but in the 1980s, people were suitably impressed with the laser designs, random flashes of light, projected images, and an actual surround sound system. Some shows employed the MS-10 to show things like the constellations and a dramatic view of the Milky Way. Similar shows were offered at the Bishop Planetarium in Bradenton and the Space Transit Planetarium in Miami. By the way, that's the coolest name for a museum I've ever heard. And yes, if you know about the Space Transit Planetarium, rest assured, I'll be doing a video on it and its director, Jack Horkheimer, one of these days as well. He was remarkably important to the whole story of popular astronomy in the 80s and 90s. It'll be fascinating to see what the new laser light shows will look like in the OSC's new CineDome. I believe the management understands that at least some of the new shows should reflect the spirit of the old ones. I'd love to see shows that reflect all sorts of music, lighting, and video effects, but my hope is that I'll be able to occasionally enjoy sitting back and experiencing classic rock such as Pink Floyd, Queen, The Doors, and Rush in a similar way as I did 40 years ago. The John Young Museum became the Orlando Science Center in 1984, though until its move in 1997, it was a fairly small place with a limited number of subjects to cover. Today, the OSC has many more interesting exhibits, as you've seen. Its exhibits have been regularly updated to keep it fresh and interesting to repeat visitors. My recent visit reminded me that the OSC is quite beautiful and a lot of fun. I'd encourage you to visit. Frankly, it's as good, if not better, than similar attractions on International Drive, such as Wonderworks. Now, I'll be following up with the OSC in the next few months as to see how everything is going, and we'll see what happens when the CineDome has its opening. I plan to be there to cover the historic event. Thanks for watching another of my videos. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Both of those help the channel grow. Also, check out my Patreon site if you're interested in supporting my work with cold hard cash. I'd appreciate it. Stingray Tom's Florida, traveling through time around the Sunshine State.